Hey everybody, how's it going? It is Fandom Empire now. Apologize for being late. It has been a whirlwind of an afternoon. So we're going to dive right into this as quickly as we can. First off the top here, Mike is not with us tonight for personal reasons. And when Mike wants to divulge those personal reasons, he can do so. I know he was looking forward to this, but joining us for the first time in a long time, it's Ray. I'm back.
You missed me, everybody? Because I missed you.
He's alive.
I am alive. Yes, very much so.
The rumors are clearly untrue, needless to say, and we'll touch on that later.
Yeah, I heard about some of them. Before we start, shout out Mary Janie, love you. And I want to give a shout out to my crew, Jen, Tamara, Casey Figgy, and most of all, Lucas, my best buddy. Hope to see you soon, pal.
And then also joining us, the guy you're actually here to, at least here tonight, and that is the writer of Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, and the writer and director of Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. It's Mr. Daniel Farrands. How's it going, dude?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Sorry, we have a little technical snafu getting me on, and my video is not working up to stuff. It kind of doesn't where I live anyway, but at least we have audio working now. We had a little hiccup there, so sorry about the delay.
Oh, it's better than nothing. I'm sure you'll have people going, "Oh, that's not Daniel Farrands."
Right?
Kieran playing Daniel Farrands.
The imposter.
That's a thing on this channel. So, for the audience, we're going to do some Q&A towards the end, but it's unfair for us to just randomly pick a bunch of people to ask questions. So if you want to send in a super chat, we will make sure those that send in super chats, regardless of how much it is, get their questions answered by Daniel towards the end, as long as he's willing to answer them, that is. Without further ado, though, let's jump into this, man. Well, you got a lot going on right now, much more than what I thought you had going on after doing some research. So maybe let us know what you have coming up, at least from what I read, August 16th on one front. And I guess on the other, it sounds like this year, but that's not definite. Maybe fill us in on that.
Yeah. I actually, again, talk about, timing and everything else, that I was able to make 2 films during, the height of the COVID, pandemic that we're all still, dealing with. But when we embarked on these projects, it was really at the beginning and a lot of unknowns going on. So anyway, but yeah, the very first one that we made out of the gate was this movie coming up on, as you mentioned, on August 16th here in US. I'll have a little theatrical preview from our friends at Fathom Events. and the title is Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. And that will be followed up with, I guess we'll call it the companion movie, which is titled Eileen Wuornos, American Boogie Woman. But to me, that always sounded like, like a roller skating movie from the 70s, except with the Eileen Wuornos name attached to it. Makes it a little different. But yeah, so just really grateful that we were able to work and get these made during a pretty rough time. So yeah.
I have a question about the Bundy film and the Eileen Wuornos film. There's been a couple of films done about them. Charlize Theron did Monster, and I think there was a direct-to-video one about Ted Bundy. Without going into too many details or spoilers, how does yours differ from the ones that we've like already seen? Like, what do they offer that might be new?
Sure. Yeah. Well, first of all, and certainly no disrespect to any other filmmaker. I mean, some really well done films and documentaries have been done, certainly on Ted Bundy. I mean, it seems like it's the one that everybody kind of keeps going back to that story. I think the reason for that is that because he was so multi-dimensional, and I don't mean that in a positive way. There were just so many things about him, I think, that fascinated people. It was less to me fascinating to tell another story about Ted Bundy and his charmingness or his handsome, qualities that people have sort of latched onto over the years. I wanted to make a movie that portrayed him as the true horrific monster that he was, not sugarcoating it, not putting on a kind of like a thing about his relationships with women who he used and misled. I didn't want to make a movie about his, difficult childhood or why he might have become this way. We know all that stuff. To me, what was more important was telling the story through the lens of not only the law enforcement personnel who really worked tirelessly without a lot of technology at their hands, or even communication between departments and at different administrations within like Seattle, between Seattle and Florida and Colorado and all of these different places where Ted Bundy was murdering people, specifically young women at that time in the early to mid 70s. I wanted to tell the story about them, and I also want to tell the story about these young women whose lives were so tragically cut short, because I think they're the ones that always get forgotten. And I think that's the tragedy of it all. I think it's less, Ted Bundy superstar and more these are the people whose lives were affected and ruined by him, and those who fought very diligently to track him down.
Yes, well, that just literally answers my second question in a way. Like I was going to ask, where at any time did you feel that that I might seemingly be glorifying this guy? And was there at any time where you were making it where you felt like something that you were shooting might have glorified him, or were you?
No, because I really take issue and umbrage with people who use that word when we talk about serial killers and making movies about them. I don't glorify any serial killer or any murderer.
Right, because
That's to me that it's to me. I guess some people think just by virtue of the fact you're making a movie about that person, that horrific moment in history, they think that's glorification. I disagree. I think it's absolutely something that we will continue to talk about, pore over. I think that's kind of hand in hand and parcel, part and parcel with all of the podcasts that people do about these things. Also about the many documentaries that are so popular on streaming services, from Discovery to Netflix and Amazon and down the road. Again, I'm not discrediting anybody else's work, but I just felt like there wasn't a movie that portrayed Bundy as the monstrous being that he was, and I don't. I guess I don't love the fact that some people do glamorize these people. I guess by making T-shirts and snarky kind of things about them, posters like come have lunch with me, and it's like a picture of Jeffrey Dahmer. Yeah, I don't. For me, find the humor in that. I find it all kind of really sad and tragic, and so that was my kind of impetus for doing it. But also, I think I was really fascinated with the police work behind it, which we don't really know a lot about in terms of ever having been dramatized. A lot of the movies I've seen, it's either Ted Bundy misunderstood, kind of, I don't know, just I don't know,
Yeah,
just
that's where I was going with that. So we can
yeah,
look forward to something serious as opposed to the one
yeah.
Bundy film that I did see where it kind of made it seem almost comedic in a way, which I
Hmm.
thought was really distasteful.
Hmm. Yeah, no, we don't go for comedy at all. There's no lightness to it. It is dark. Listen, for some people this just isn't their thing. They wouldn't want to see a movie about this, and some people are sensitive to it. I completely get it.
Mhm.
But I just want people who are listening to this and to understand where we were coming from as filmmakers, as our cast and crew. I mean, we not for a moment did we ever take any of it lightly. Um, there's definitely some graphic depictions of violence, but I think we underplayed even that. I just think of these people this was somebody's child, somebody's sister, somebody's
Yes.
friend, and I'm very acutely aware of all of that. But I also didn't want to sugarcoat it either and make it seem like, oh, they just, maybe I don't know, even just like almost like the misogynistic kind of point of view of saying some of these movies, but maybe some of the books, some of the things. I just, like as if these women were somehow, I don't know, not asking for it, but also just kind of either they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, or that they dressed a certain way, or he was drawn to them for some reason. None of these victims did anything to deserve what he did to them, and that's obviously true of any serial killer, anybody who murders somebody else. Um, I think that's fascinating, and I think also we have the great Lynn Shay in this film, and she plays Ted Bundy's mother, and she just brings a lot of gravitas and elan to the thing that I feel like I just that character of Louise Bundy to me is so fascinating. She lived in such a state of denial over what her son did up until the end. I mean, even after he was executed, she denied that he was ever anything but her wonderful, beautiful, loving son. And I think that was another one of the tragedies. And I would imagine like any parent,
Yes.
come to the realization that their child is
I,
legitimately a monster, that they would have, I don't know. I just thought she was a really interesting character, and I'm just thrilled that Lynn agreed to come in and play the part because I thought she brought such a sensitivity to it.
I actually just seen I don't know if it's the first trailer, but there was a trailer that was released 2 days ago for the movie, and she has a line in that trailer that is just absolutely it's chilling.
Mm.
And it's just even the tone of the trailer. I'm glad that you guys got into that. The tone of the trailer makes it pretty clear what you're going for, in my opinion. And
Well,
it's
that's
not
good.
comedic, and it's nothing like that. And I love the way it's shot. But the thing I find quite interesting, and I'm going to ask one of Mike's questions here since he can't be with us tonight, is I've seen Chad Michael Murray in a lot,
Mm.
and he would have been like the last person. And mind you, I'm a podcaster slash YouTuber, not I'm not doing your job, but I would have thought that he might have been the last person that I ever could have seen playing Ted Bundy. And yet in the trailer, for the first time in my lifetime, I sort of was taken back by Chad Michael Murray. It's like, oh wow, that's not who we're used to seeing on screen at all. And I'm just
Mm.
wondering what the choice was behind casting him. And it seems to at least in previews, seems like it's fared well.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. Chad was kind of somebody that I did think of early on for this. I think it's the character he plays in Riverdale, this kind of like cult leader, manipulative, kind of scary guy. And I just thought, oh, like he deserves a second look. This guy that, was kind of like the teen heartthrob back in the day and, was right. The other thing that actually did occur to me though was I revisit. I don't know why I watch a Halloween fan, so anything Jamie Lee is in we love. So, but anyway, there was the Freaky Friday remake back in the early 2000s with Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, and played the personality switching mother and daughter. But in that movie was Mark Harmon, who played the originally played Ted Bundy in Deliberate Stranger TV movie back in the late '80s, and I don't know why it was thinking of Mark as Ted Bundy, and then Chad Michael Murray, and that I think all those things kind of blended together, and then we're talking about his very kind of dark character he plays in Riverdale, and I thought, oh, he's really interesting, and I met him again all over, just virtual meetings because we weren't able to connect in person, but he read the script and he read it quickly, and he's like, I get what you're doing with this, and I think it's really brave and smart, and I think it's also a challenge to find an actor who's willing to go to such a dark place and to know going in he's already facing a certain level of criticism for playing a character like this. So I just thought it was kind of a brave undertaking on his part that he was willing to do it. But I thought he was great in the film, and it was a pleasure to work with. I mean, Chad's he's not like Ted Bundy at all. He's a very family oriented man, has a very deep faith, and he was very concerned about the way we portrayed this. So he was a great collaborator. So really grateful to him.
I have to admit that I haven't been keeping up much lately with media and what's going on in the world of entertainment and show business. But what exactly what went into choosing Bundy and Eileen Wuornos? Like, did any other high profile serial killers come up in the discussions about the film? The Green River Killer, for example, would be, I don't think anything has been really done about him and like his victims. And or Gacy is another example. Was there any specific reason why those two were chosen, or?
Well, I'll tell you, it was weird. It was almost like synchronicity or happenstance in a sense. So I had this idea for the Bundy project for a while before some of these other ones had come to the surface, like the Zac Efron movie, which did pretty well, and certainly this other documentary is concurrent with ours. There's another movie was in production with Elijah Wood playing one of the FBI profilers who begins this relationship, this strange symbiotic relationship with Ted Bundy after he's incarcerated. So that all that was kind of happening. And, I almost, it's like that collective unconscious, like people have ideas and they kind of happen around the same time. And I feel like it was maybe one of those things. But the interesting part though was that when I went to this company Voltage, it turned out that they had been behind the Ted Bundy Zac Efron film. They were one of the producers or distributors on the film. And when I pitched them my version of it, they're like, "Oh my God, that's really fascinating." And a lot of the feedback we got on that film was, although it was well received for the most part, was that it just didn't really tell the dark side of Ted Bundy. And they were intrigued by that. And that's why they wanted to go with that first, because there's already kind of this momentum around their earlier project, but also I think the way that I pitched this and told them the story of, who Ted Bundy that I knew, all the research I've ever done, what he truly was like and how monstrous he was. They were taken with that. So that's kind of how that one began. The Eileen Wuornos project happened just literally on the heels of this one, and they said, we want to do something else right away. What do you think of this? And I said, well, that's been done, and it's been done so well. Charlize won the Oscar for that role. That's a really difficult one to step into. But they said, well, think about it. We think it's interesting. We'd like to do something about a female serial killer, and she's certainly probably the most well-known of that group. And I, again, I pitched them on some other ideas, but they were like, no, I think this is sort of interesting. See what you come up with. And I dove into the research, and what I learned was very little. I mean, I suppose if you're an Eileen Wuornos, file, you know that she, as a very young woman, had hitchhiked her way down to Florida. And before she embarked on her murderous spree, about 10 years before that, maybe a little longer, she met and married a very wealthy, much older man, and lived for a very short period of time a very privileged life among the high society of Florida.
That is new.
And again, I was fascinated with that, and there's not much known about it. And that was sort of the jumping off point for this movie. So I know that people have said it's sort of like a prequel to Monster, but it's not connected to Monster, that film, at all. It's not trying to do that. It's telling a very little known chapter of the life of Eileen Wuornos through the lens of her retelling that story on the eve of her scheduled execution to a reporter who comes to interview her, and she draws him into the story, and that's kind of the jumping off point for that film.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Would help if I'm not muted. All right. Another one of Mike's questions, although I feel like you might have just answered one of those questions. While doing these films, was there anything that you learned about either one of these individuals that you didn't already know going into the film?
Well, like I said, the whole idea of Eileen Wuornos, who, was such a tragic character, certainly not excusing her horrific deeds that she committed in life, but, she started off as a have not in this world. And I never knew much more about her than that she was this, prostitute, drug taking, drug addicted, serial killer, who had claimed she had killed, at least several of these men in self-defense, but it seemed to, that was as it went on, it became more of an outlet of her inner rage that she had. I just always found her to be tragic and very sad. But what I didn't know was this whole other facet of her life, that for a very short period of time, she was married to a really wealthy man and had an opportunity that she could have completely changed her life around. But I think sadly the seeds had been sown, of her trajectory in life. So, so that one. In terms of Ted Bundy, I'm trying to think if there was something about him that I didn't know going in. I don't know. I think it was watching some of the documentaries and how difficult the job was for law enforcement in those days. There was no internet. There was not even, in fact, the only computer they had at the Seattle Sheriff's Department, where all this started, was the one in the payroll department. They didn't even have that to be able to match license plate numbers when they were getting reports of this crazy guy in a VW Beetle approaching young women in various places and asking them to help him, or pretending he was handicapped in some way. But yeah, they had to basically manually do all of this research. So I thought that was a really compelling way also to help sort of inform the audience just how different the world was back then, and I think how difficult their jobs were.
So I have a question here from my fiance in terms of I guess this would be more the filmmaking side of things.
Mhm.
Did you have to get permission from any of the victims' families before covering said families in the movie, or are they not, like, I don't know if you're using different names or if they're the same names? Like, how does something like that work when you're touching on something that's real life events?
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean, we didn't have to seek permission to tell a story that was in public record. I mean, this is all from the trial, from various documentaries, books, things that have been known about the case for many years. So it wasn't like we had to go out legally and try to obtain life rights, you know. And I don't mean to sound blasé about this at all, because I'm not. Is, when we die, we don't have life rights anymore. So, and even this notion of life rights anymore doesn't really. It's really kind of become something of a dinosaur in a sense. There've been a number of cases fought and won on like Olivia de Havilland from Gone with the Wind had fought this case of the miniseries Duel. Was it, no, not Duel? What was the one? The Betty Davis versus Joan Crawford miniseries that they made, and then she didn't like the depiction of her in that, and the ruling was that once it's a public story and you're a public figure, anybody can tell that story. You don't want to defame anybody, and we certainly don't in this film in any way, shape, or form. I mean, all of these victims are depicted as the vulnerable, caring young people that they were. They weren't. None of them are shown to be as as if they were doing anything that they deserved their fate. That it was just the monster of the movie truly is Ted Bundy. So, no, the answer to that is no. That being said, when we we did show the film to Kathleen McChesney very recently. Kathleen McChesney was the lead detective out of one of the detectives, certainly the only female detective on the task force in Seattle, Washington, and the movie really centers on her. And she had a lot of complimentary things to say about the movie. That she felt we were very respectful of the victims, and although she's depicted probably as doing things that she didn't so much do in reality, but she understood that we were telling the story of the difficulties of what the law enforcement people had to go through, and how challenging their jobs were, and also kind of the sexism that she faced as a young woman. She had ambitions to join the FBI even as a young woman in law enforcement, and she was told that they don't hire female agents in the FBI at that time. So all of that's in the film, and she felt very like, oh, that we honored the victims, we honored her, so she was pleased with the portrayal.
To go into too much detail, but how important was the material available on Ted Bundy, such as, for example, television interviews he might have done? Like, did you research those thoroughly? There was one that he did hours before his execution.
Mm-hmm.
I do not remember the interviewer's name. It was an older gentleman with glasses, and Bundy almost had me convinced he was telling the truth in that thing because of his manipulative powers. Did you research a lot of his interviews with the media to come up with dialogue or anything for the particular the character show?
Mm-hmm. To a certain extent, yes. As I said at the beginning, I wasn't interested in telling the Ted Bundy biography movie. Like, that's not what this is.
Mm-hmm.
He's the evil force that is creating mayhem everywhere he goes, and it's not about him as in trying to dissect his psyche. There's certainly elements of all of the interviews that he gave, or at least some of the more well-known ones. In fact, there's like kind of an inner monologue running through the film where you're hearing kind of his thoughts, and a lot of those quotes are taken directly from his interviews. So a lot of the words that you hear Chad as Ted Bundy speaking through the film are the actual words of Ted Bundy, which makes it, I think, even more disturbing.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
I know the chat's eager for us to get to Halloween, so I'll wrap it up with two quick questions here. And if I didn't ask this one, I'd be getting in a lot of trouble when the show's over. But what made you go with Holland Roden as the female lead in the Ted Bundy American Boogeyman film? My fiance is a huge fan of hers, so
and rightfully so. She's great. Honestly, it was a combination of her vulnerability and her intelligence. It was both of those things, and she had a vague resemblance to the real McChesney, the character that she's playing. So, of course, that's like physically, you want them to look completely different from, the person that you're depicting. But it wasn't so much a physical resemblance to me as it was her spunk and her ability to sort of carry herself in a very, male-dominated world, especially that this character is inhabiting, and just sort of not even react to it. There's something powerful about her ability to kind of just ignore the noise around her, ignore the sexist, whistleblowers that, they whistle at her when she walks down the hallway in the film, and the kind of misogynistic kind of world that she's trying to navigate in her early career. And I just thought the way that Holland approached all of that in a very brave and almost, not, she doesn't overplay that hand either. It's just kind of like, this is the way it is in her world. And she just wanted that to seem as authentic as she could. So, but she was, yeah. And of course she was in Teen Wolf. So she's great and just a lot of fun and really committed to this. So really appreciated her.
how can everybody see this movie again? That's where I have a little bit of confusion. Is it like a wide theatrical release that's going to happen in North America, or are there other means that people can? You never know during today's time.
I know, and that's the tricky part. I know at least one of you're in Canada. So I don't think Canada has Fathom Events. Fathom Events is a kind of like a special event, theatrical special event kind of distributor. And Fathom has generously taken on the movie. It's just going to have a one night kind of play here in the States, but it's going to be everywhere, wide, like 700, 800 theaters across the US on August 16th. So those tickets are available at fathomevents.com. And you can just put in your zip code and it'll tell you all the theaters near you where it's playing. And then secondly, it'll here in the US, and I'm not sure about Canada yet. I know that September 3rd will have the streaming and DVD release same day.
Well, my fingers are crossed. I was hoping I was going to see this thing in August, but I don't think that's going to happen. But here's hoping that it's on PVOD come September.
Yes.
I can't wait, man. It looks fantastic. Now, if you don't mind, we're going to move on to a movie that you did eons ago.
100 years ago, right?
And I was reading some of your quotes from Taking Shape, which is, by the way, a fantastic book. For those of you that haven't gotten Taking Shape or Taking Shape 2, Dustin McNeil and Travis Mullins do just an incredible job. And if you're a Halloween fan, like a real diehard Halloween fan, you should be buying those books because there's so much insightful material in those books about events that happen. Let me start off with this. Halloween 5 was poorly received, even by those within the genre community. Development stalled on Halloween 6 in 1990, which I believe was the same year that you met Mustafa Akkad, at least according to the book that I just mentioned. And it was long rumored that Akkad threw Rosenberg's version of the script across the room. Tarantino was approached to possibly do this movie. I want to start off with this one because I don't know if you've ever seen the show Supernatural, but when I hear about this story, about your Halloween Bible, if you will, that you gave Mustafa Akkad, I picture like John Winchester's Supernatural journal that he has, and I can only imagine what because you're not just someone that came in and wrote the movie, you were a diehard Halloween fan. What was that Bible? Because I don't think anybody in the public has ever seen pictures of it, not to my knowledge anyway. What was it like doing that and giving it to him, and what did it contain, if you don't mind sharing?
Sure. Well, I mean, just backing up a little bit, all I can tell you is my recollection is that I saw Halloween 5 the weekend that it opened, probably opening night, with two close friends of mine. And I remember walking out of the theater and standing in the lobby and saying, I'm going to write Halloween 6. Now, we all may have these aspirations of things that we'd love to do, our bucket list of things we do in this world. I don't know why I made that declaration, but I did. I knew no one. I was not a produced writer, as we say in the business at that point. Had been writing screenplays. I was very young. At the time I was 19. And I just had this confidence, I guess, that this something that I could do, and then I had an idea of how this could work. Anyhow, through that declaration, or after that declaration, I picked up that they used to have in those days, before, again, pre-internet, all of that. But the way to find producers and production companies was this thing called the Hollywood Creative Directory, if I'm remembering correctly. And they sold it at newsstands. And so I bought one. And in it was Mustafa Akkad's production company, and he had a distribution company in those days called Galaxy International. And anyhow, I had the address and I wrote a letter, and lo and behold, I got a response from a gentleman named Ramsey Thomas, who was one of the producers of Halloween 5. And it was a very terse call. And he's like, oh, I got your letter. We're looking for writers for 6. We're going to make that movie right away. Send me a sample. Okay. So I packaged up by snail mail, as was our only choice in those days, a screenplay that I had written for another original horror film, not a Halloween script. And I stamped it, put it in the mail, and a couple weeks after that, Ramsey called me again. He goes, I read your script. I really like it. I want you to come in and meet Mustafa. And to me, I was like, holy shit. Really? And that was the beginning of what you guys call the Bible. Because listen, I'd never pitched a movie in my life at that point. I had a couple, things that I'd optioned, but I'd never been in the office of a producer. Certainly not producer of a franchise of films that I grew up loving, imitating all of the things that we as fans do. But yeah, so this meeting was on the books, and I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? So I thought, well, maybe I can impress him because I don't have credit. So maybe I can impress him with my knowledge of the series. And so I started compiling stuff, a family tree of the Strodes and the Myers clans. I remember photocopying pages of the novelization and highlighting certain passages of, the origin of Michael Myers and the Celtic kind of connection to the story and the Druids. And I remember we had a kind of a new age bookstore in Los Angeles back in those days called the Bodhi Tree, which had been around for years. I think it closed fairly recently. But I had seen, there was obviously that mark of thorn. We didn't know what it was called at the time, that they had established in the fifth movie. And I'm like, well, what the fuck is that thing? It looks like a triangle with a big long line through it. What's this? What's this mark? And I remember showing it to one of the, the employees / gurus in this new age bookstore. And she's like, oh, that's a rune. I'm like, what the hell's a rune? Well, here. So she brings me to this book. It was called Rune Magic by Donald Tyson. I still have it. And she showed me what the thorn was. And so I bought the book and I photocopied those pages and I included that in the Bible. And, so again, it was me. And I also wrote a bunch of things like where the series has been, where it could go from here. Certainly some of my pitch had to do with bring Jamie Lee Curtis back, at which I remember Mr. Cod going, ha, 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 she'll never come back. She's a big star. If he were here today. Yeah, so that was what it was. It was pretty labor intensive. And then the other thing that I did was I made I had a friend who was a graphic designer. It wasn't as easy. We didn't have Photoshop back then, but he created I told him what I wanted, and I said, take the A of the Halloween title and replace it with this mark, this thorn, and to kind of create like a new logo out of it. And I put that on this black binder and walked into that meeting with Mustafa, and it was like being summoned to the principal's office, I think, in a way. And here I am walking in to, his office on Sunset Boulevard, and the Halloween posters are all over the walls. And I come in, and it's just like what you guys would imagine. It's like him with the big desk and the pipe in his mouth. And just, I'm terrified. And I sat there, and I think he asked me a couple questions. I, gingerly offered him my my research portfolio, if you will, and he took it and he kind of snickered. I think he was kind of like, "Who is this kid?" And he said goodbye, and it was probably a 5-minute meeting. And I thought, well, that sucked. That's never going to happen. Well, great, but listen, it was exciting to have been there, and I was thrilled. And then 5 years later, my phone rang. It was him, and he's like, listen, we've gone back and forth with writers and people who've tried to crack this, and the thing I keep coming back to is this thing you left me 5 years ago, and it's still on my desk, and I use it for every writer that comes in here. It's like become our own, kind of blueprint. It's all the research you did was, helpful to us. So I kind of I guess for free gave him my own the benefits of my own hard work and everything, but he remembered it. And I think it was that, me going the extra mile and leaving something with him that made an impact that kept my name in the, somewhere on a list. So, anyway, that was the beginning of it. Sorry about the long-winded explanation, but that's how it all started.
No, it's awesome, man. It's insightful. And what's crazy is the fact that in that 4 or 5 year waiting period is, at least according to the Taking Shape novel, is they went through just upwards of a dozen different people with that.
I think so. I mean, I don't, again, I wasn't part of any of that. I just remember the time reading in the trades, there's this new startup, company that's Miramax. It's called Dimension Films, and it was a brand new label. Miramax had been around for a bunch of years, but this had been acquired by Disney of all things, and now it was becoming a bigger thing. Pulp Fiction was their first sort of prestige big movie, that art house movie that became something huge. And so they were really on that, the roller coaster ride was climbing, and it was going fast. And they had done a Hellraiser, which they'd had, I'm sure you guys know, had a lot of problems with. That was the first thing they did out of the gate, and then Halloween 6 was supposed to be the next one, and yet apparently a bunch of writers had come in before me and tried to tackle it, and just none of it was working. None of it was addressing the things that each of the parties wanted it to address. I don't think Miramax, that's a whole other conversation, but I don't think the studio cared as much if it was a sequel to 5 or what. I don't think they cared about any of that, to be honest. I think it was Mustafa that said, hey, you know, I've been, for 5 years, my office has been inundated with letters from fans around the world. Who is that man in black? Who is the mysterious stranger with the black coat and the hat? And like he wanted to answer that question. I think if it had been the studio's choice, they would have been like, whatever, we don't care.
Who was he in your original idea?
Dr. Wynn. It was Dr. Wynn.
Really? I heard that Don Shanks was told in 5 that it might have been Michael's brother, is what they were going to go for.
I don't know. I don't think that was ever. I mean, nobody ever told me who it was. When I walked into the meeting, the second meeting, the 5 year later meeting, it was like, we don't know who this is.
Really?
Do you have any ideas? And I said, well, and I tossed around a couple things, but I think it was actually Malik Akkad who had the idea that he would have been somebody from the sanitarium. Somebody, a doctor or a patient or something like that. And then I threw the name Dr. Wynn out there, and they're like, who's that? Like, well, that's the doctor in the first movie that Donald Pleasance is walking out of the sanitarium and asking how he knew how to drive a car. And the way that I pitched the movie was, it was very simple. And I said, it's Halloween meets Rosemary's Baby. And when I said that, that's Mr. Akkad was suddenly, he understood, like, oh, okay, oh, wow, okay. So there's going to be something like devil and black magic to this. And I said, yep, it's going to have that sense of like kind of a cult, you know, that's behind it. And he responded to all of that. In fact, he sent me off to write a treatment after that second meeting, 5 year later meeting. And, you know, in my exuberance, I think the treatment I wrote was something like 30 pages long. And he called me probably after it took him hours to read it and said, this is beautiful. I love all of this, but this is too much. You know, you have too much story here. But what's great is that you've got the plot of 6 and 7. I see how we can make both movies. And I think, you know, I don't think there was any serious talk about doing them like back to back, but I think that he felt like there was enough story there to tell it, you know, there's enough material for 2 films.
How much did so you ended up getting it, I believe the meeting was in 1994. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
How much did your initial pitch in 1990 change in 1994? Like, years have passed, bunch of people been turned down. Is it basically the same thing, or did you have to change some things when you went in?
You know what, that first meeting, the 5 minute, you know, hey, how are you? Don't bother me, kid meeting was, it wasn't a pitch. It was kind of like, wanted to meet me, you know, and it was more of a meet and greet than it was me pitching any specific ideas. It was me just kind of presenting me and my writing sample and my, you know, quote unquote Bible Halloween. We never really got into the finer points of a pitch. That's why I thought the whole thing was just dead in the water. But yeah, but it was that second meeting, that 5 year later meeting, where I, you know, was really kind of, you know, put to task, like, so what's the movie? You know, and I remember one of the first things I started right out of the gate saying was, well, Jamie Lloyd, and then they all stopped me. Well, no. We got to move on from that character. Nobody wants to see her again. I'm like, no. You're like, wait, no, you can't. You have to have her. And I kind of was sticking to my guns on that one. And that was the beginning. And when I said the Rosemary's Baby thing, and Mr. Akkad's eyes started to kind of light up, and then I said, well, Jamie has kind of been the pawn of this kind of underground dark society, you know, Illuminati group who've been kind of quietly working on behind the scenes of this whole thing. He loved all that. And he's like, okay, great, you know, and Danielle will play her. And that's what we had hoped.
That's just amazing info. That some of that I didn't even know. So, when it comes to the theatrical cut of the film, how much of that is yours or someone else's? I don't mean
very
to.
Little. No. I'm sorry. I was chuckling with that one. No, very, very little. Well, listen, I mean, the essence of it is mine. You know, the setup of the movie and the story. I think what happened with that was that a bunch of reshoots were ordered. Donald Pleasance had very sadly passed on at that point. You have to remember too, like there was a release date coming up, and on this, they were already tied into releasing it, for Halloween of '95. We shot the movie in the fall of and early winter of '94, and it sort of sat there on a shelf. I mean, editorial took some time and all of that, but then they had kind of brought the director Joe Chappelle in to do a lot of heavy lifting, fix quote unquote their Hellraiser 4 film. And so while Joe was doing that work for Dimension, Halloween was kind of languishing. It was just we're all kind of like, well, what are we going to do with this? I think after the original, now they call the producer's cut, was screened, everybody knew that it needed to be augmented, it needed to be enhanced. I just never understood from even that point, like, wait a minute, like, what happened to all of the scary cat and mouse stalking that was in the script? Like, they didn't shoot it. And so when I thought we were going to go back and fix things and augment them, I thought we were going to go back and add all of those moments of tension.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and little did I know that they wanted to basically gut the story and start pretty much all over and sort of underplay the cult aspect of it. And I didn't even necessarily disagree with that. I just wanted to reshoot it so it wasn't so hokey. Like it looked like the Temple of fucking Doom, the way it was shot. And that was never the intention. It was also supposed to be very surreal. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Rosemary's Baby, but there's no like coven, of people gathered on a stage. What was so scary about it was like these were your next door neighbors,
Neighbors, yeah.
that were, involved in some really nefarious, dark shit. So to me, that's what it should have been. And I just never understood the kind of visual style of what they ended up making. And then, so again, in my naivete, I thought that they were going to go back and change the movie back to what we intended it to be originally. Well, no, they just decided to make it science fiction or like an episode of X-Files. I don't know what they were thinking. And then all the crazy cuts and the, all the weird flash cuts and the 90s kind of weird guitars. And it just became something kind of goofy to me. And I never understood the reasoning.
Fangoria magazine called it Halloween on Acid.
Well,
I do remember that.
One way of putting it. Yeah, it just never made sense. And the director and I kind of, I'd say we butted heads, but I certainly, made my displeasure with the whole thing very known to him. And I felt like, and listen, I'm not even begrudging this man who I haven't talked to in all these years, but I don't begrudge him his desire to, make a career for himself. I mean, I don't know that many people in that position would have turned down an opportunity to have a 3 or 4 picture deal with this, mini major studio. Also remember he was like a young husband, he is a new father, they're growing family, and I think job security is not easy to come by in the entertainment field. So I think he played the game with Dimension, and he ended up parlaying that into a successful career. And I'm pleased for him, but I also felt like, hey, you kind of sold out Halloween in a way. I did kind of feel that way.
So I guess on two fronts here, I believe when I think I read this somewhere that you originally wanted basically all of Haddonfield in on it, and you had to scale it back to Smith Grove. One, is that true? And two,
Mm.
I've always thought that I heard that the producer's cut was more in line with what you had written, and yet still quite far off. Is that correct, or am I
Well,
missing
yeah,
the
it's
point?
exactly what I was just saying. Like the way I had written it and envisioned it was never like this goofy kind of like coven scene with like being tied to altars and big stone tablets all over the place. I just wanted it to be much more relatable. I understood that it was like we were talking about, like we're in the bowels of this old mental hospital, and I just wanted it to be creepier and more gritty and realistic and frightening, in a more not so gothic and kind of weird. I just didn't want it to be, the whatever, the blood of, whatever, Dracula kind of. That being said, though, and it is true that I wrote the part of Dr. Wynn with Christopher Lee in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that was that, there was that long, known story among fans that that John Carpenter Deborah Hill had written Loomis for him, and he had turned it down and regretted it. So I thought, well, what a great pairing on screen if we got Donald Pleasance and Christopher Lee on the same, in the same film, and one's the good doctor, one's the evil doctor, and then they have to, these two sort of forces of nature have to go at each other, and they're kind of it's all kind of like Michael Myers' immortal soul is in the balance. I thought that was just kind of a great way into the story, and but the powers that be were like, well, nobody remembers who Christopher Lee was, and of course this is pre Star Wars, pre Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, no. Just I learned quickly on that movie that I was just the writer.
Yeah, that had to be difficult.
I have a question. Maybe you can do some rumor killing here. I saw the film September 29th, 1995. I paid for one movie and snuck in to see this because it was the only.
Dare you?
I know. And a couple of months later, Fangoria came out with an entire article saying there's a whole other version of this movie that no one ever saw.
Right.
And they literally put the whole producer's cut story line into this article, and I was livid. But the rumor was that somebody stole that tape out of Mustafa Akkad's office and illegally began releasing it. Do you happen to know if that's true? Or
I have no idea how that. I just for years and years I would occasionally go to conventions, and there'd always be some bootleg copy of it floating around in various vendor tables and what have you. I don't remember the original leak. I mean, again, it could have been somebody in the lab or any number of people, but I don't know.
It was grainy with a time clock. Remember when I brought it over to your place? And you could barely.
Oh, it had like the editor's time code on it, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So I mean, that makes me think like it came probably from one of the labs. In those days we're still processing film, so it's very easy to just some kid working in the vault. Hey, look what I found.
I think just with what you have told us here tonight, it's clear that there were way too many chefs in the kitchen when it comes to Halloween 6, and it's probably hard to pinpoint a percentage, but whether it's the theatrical cut or whether it's the producer's cut or even both of them, how much of your script would you say actually made it into those movies?
I mean, the theatrical, maybe 50%. I'd say. I mean, producer's cut, I'll give it like 65, 70. Somewhere in there.
So still a lot chopped away.
Yeah. I mean, there were just scenes that never got shot, and that's what was so kind of like, and that's the stuff I was hoping we'd just go back and shoot it, when we had a chance to do reshoots. But it was made clear very early on that's not the intention. We're just going to go and make a whole new ending, and we're going to do all this weird stuff to it, and and I remember Bob Weinstein in particular was like, I want blowout kills. I want heads exploding. I want girls' guts flying across the screen. That's literally what he was saying. That was his mandate from the boss was, I want blowout. That was the word he kept using.
Can you give us an example on some scenes that didn't get shot?
Sure. There's a bunch of them, but like the scene where cranky John Strode comes home and he's drunk and he's drinking at the office or went out for drinks, and he comes in the house, and in the movie, even the producer's cut, he just walks in the house and walks down to the basement and gets killed. But in the script that I wrote, he came home and he's barking at people who aren't there to where's his dinner, and he throws like a pot pie in the microwave, goes and sits in front of the television, and he starts flipping channels, and Halloween 3 is on television.
Yes, I did read that.
And he's like, what's this shit? And he turns that off. And then he goes into the kitchen, and somebody has laid his pot pie out for him. And that's creepy. And then he goes back to the living room where somebody's turned the channel back to Halloween 3. And so there's this, and then you could see Michael kind of stalking in the background of the scene. It was like they were playing cat and mouse, but he never saw him. And then he walks to the basement door where suddenly it's open, and that's how that all was supposed to be set up. What I missed in the movie, and I think what the director missed, was the fact that Michael Myers works best when he's kind of like a child playing childlike games with his victims before he kills them. That's the whole tension of it. That's what he was in the original movie. You know, like putting the sheet over his head and the glasses on. You know, he played with them. He toyed with them. Like he knew how to. It was like a Halloween. It was like trick or treat. That's the whole point. So the fact that all of that stuff just got kind of left out was just really annoying to me. I'm like, wait, now that's like a Friday the 13th movie. It's like, oh, they just walk in a room and Jason kills them in a disgusting way. But for me, it was always about the building of the tension and the misdirection that works better in the Halloween. It's the
I was
good
gonna
one.
say, when you were explaining the thing about Weinstein there, and he wants to see head exploding and guts.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
want to make the comment: have you watched Halloween, men? Like that's not really what Halloween. Halloween.
I will go on record and tell you that he said John Carpenter is a hack.
Wow. Did he give Did he give an explanation for that comment, or just
no? He's a hack.
Is this because like they did get into a rights dispute, right?
You know what? If the Miramax brass weren't hating on somebody, they wouldn't be happy. So I'm sorry, but I'm just going to say it the way it is. I mean, that's
I appreciate the candidness, man.
What he said.
It's nice. Daniel sends in a super chat. Sorry, Daniel, you are Daniel. Dean sends in a super chat.
Hey, Dean.
What was it like trying to write H6 and clean up the mess left behind from Halloween 5?
The mess left behind. I don't think that's fair. I mean, nobody sets out to make a bad movie. I mean, we certainly didn't. Nobody does. There wasn't a mess left behind from Halloween 5. There were just a bunch of story threads that dangled there that we just needed to, address them. It was challenging because it was asking us to go in a slightly different direction, and I think the mistake is, and now I see in retrospect, is that you're splitting you're splitting it up and you're saying there's two bad guys, and I think that if anything that the new, series of films are proving is that it's Michael Myers and that's it. I think by introducing this other character, this, Wynn or Man in Black, however you want to call him, it just kind of split the, you don't want to have two villains. It's not like the Emperor and Darth Vader where that sort of worked. But that's kind of in a weird way how maybe I saw it, like the Wynn was like the Emperor, and Michael was his, in a way like Vader was sort of the pawn. So, I don't know. I saw it as a chance to do something maybe was a little bit more epic in scale too. So, again, everybody starts with the best of intentions. And I even say that about the Miramax group. None of the people from that, from the studio wanted to make the movie terrible. And I think they even thought, well, hey, if we can go in there and gore it up and make it bloodier, maybe the audiences will go for it more, and just give the audience, a certain segment of the audience that just wants blood and guts will deliver, what they want. I just disagreed with it, but I just don't think that anybody, even in the makers of Halloween 5, thought they were making a bad movie.
Matt sends in a super chat. He asks, hey, Daniel, what are your feelings about the new Halloween trilogy thus far? How Green is directing and your thoughts of how the story has unfolded to this point?
Well, I mean, I think it's great that they have so much money to make these movies now. Suddenly they're big budget, I don't say big budget, but they're certainly, 10 times the budget that we had to make ours, and the ones prior. So I think, I'm not saying money solves problems, but money enables you to have more days to shoot. It enables you to attract better talent. It enables you to have better locations, construct things that you couldn't do on a very limited budget like us. Like I wanted to build the Myers house in Salt Lake City, like the actual, reproduce it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a line in the movie where the radio DJ was like my voice coming through, like my annoyed, I'm just the writer voice, and all the things he says in the movie are things that I was just rumbling about privately, which was like, we should have taken this house to the real Myers house, or this show to the real Myers house, where we should have done it here in the first place. Whatever that line is, that was just me like saying, well, yeah, we kind of should have either shot this in South Pasadena, or we should have built the house the way it should look. Well, in these movies, they're doing all of that, so I think there is that sense of they have more money, more resources, more talent to do it, right. I won't say that I loved it. I didn't. But I felt like, hey, at least they're kind of wiping the slate clean and going back to the basics of it. I don't know if I necessarily agree with like taking the brother sister thing out. We all know it so well by now. It's just almost like to backpedal on that after all these years and all these movies. I think it's just confused a lot of people, and I think there's still like debates that rage or people that still go on these Halloween forums. I see them from time to time. I'll poke my nose in, and they're like, "Now, how are they not related, or how are they related?" And I think the whole thing is just a little too much for
The
people, and I
everyday
feel like
moviegoers definitely too.
yeah, like they don't know. Like, and I think that I had like they had that one throwaway line in the movie, like, "Oh, they're not really related." That was just something people made up, and just to try to write off the whole idea of it for the audience, I guess. But people weren't. I just feel like it didn't really change anything. They might as well just have made them related. She's still the target. She's still obsessed with him. He's obsessed with her. Like, what was the point of just disentangling it from that revelation that was, obviously key to the entire ongoing series of films at that point. So, I mean, I guess I sort of disagree with that. I understand why, in a way, they did it, but I feel like ultimately that just didn't have a great payoff.
Frank sends in a super chat. He asks, Daniel, did you ever get a chance to meet Donald Pleasance? If so, what was he like?
I did, yes. And he was a genius and a gentleman and very, very funny. One of the best moments of my life, I will say, is I picked up the phone one day and it was Donald Pleasance on the phone.
Wow.
And just hearing that voice, come through the line was just chilling and awesome and incredible. And he said such kind things to me about the script and how it was the best since he had read since the first, and he was going to make 22 Halloween movies, and hopefully I'll be writing all of those. And so he was really just a gentleman and such a talent. And I don't know, in a way, I feel like we did sort of make the last real Halloween movie. Not again disparaging Jamie Lee and her contribution to the franchise, of course, but Donald was the elder statesman. He was the Dr. Frankenstein of the piece. He brought that gravity to everything that I think it's, I don't know, after ours, that sort of all that went missing.
One of our hosts on the channel, Kieran, says the one thing that differs Halloween from Friday and Jason and some of the other ones is Dr. Loomis and that character.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was the voice of good. He represented the sane. Maybe probably Loomis was insane in his own way. Certainly as it went on with like Cookie Woman and crazy. He's like, "Here's your little girl,"
Right?
but he kind of was coming unhinged in his own right. But there was something that he classed it up. He just brought an element of class, made it more than just a slasher film.
It almost appears to me, and maybe some other Halloween fans out there, that 6, it seemed like the mantle was kind of being passed from Loomis to Tommy. Was that ever an intention? Because like Michael and Loomis are not on the screen together at all in any cut of that film, but Tommy and Michael are. So like it almost seemed like Loomis was kind of like it was almost like a passing of the torch to Tommy sort of thing. Like that's the feeling I got from it. Was there any intention there?
100% right. Exactly the intention. Yeah, exactly. I mean, not that we were any of us thinking, "Oh, Donald is going to pass away in the next 6 months." None of us were thinking that, or not wanting to think that. But he was certainly getting on in years. I think it was very evident. And you can even see it in the movie where like there's Paul Rudd like running for the house, and there's Donald, kind of laboring to catch up with him. He was struggling at the time. Again, it was no conscious thought of like we'll write him out of the next movie. It was just more of like, oh, we need to bring in kind of a younger, kind of similar character that's gonna be able to maybe carry it on into future episodes. So it was no conscious thought about replacing him though.
Right.
Was there? I know you've made it clear that at best 70% or so of your script made it into the producer's cut. Was there ever a scene that you wrote where Loomis and Michael did appear together in that movie, or was it intentional to keep them apart?
Oh no, they did in the script when the coven falls apart. There was a whole thing with Loomis and Michael, and in fact there was a whole chase like through the sanitarium, and Tommy had like a magnetic card that allowed him to get through gate after gate after gate, and the last one doesn't work, and then suddenly the way that the whole thing ended was there was Michael in the middle, and there was Loomis on one side of the gate and Wynn on the side of the other gate, like he was in this cage, and they were, and that's where the climax of the whole thing took place. There was no the power of the runes stopped him, and the magic acorns. I don't know where any of that came from. Again, like I'm just like, guys, really? So yeah,
that wasn't yours then. The rune.
no,
Okay.
the magic acorn.
Wow.
Yeah,
And that's where the movie ended in your script?
Kind of, yeah. It was a little bit left like a cliffhanger, and then I mean, there's so many drafts of it, but then I think the original draft, which I remember, was that kind of left it a little bit of a cliffhanger, like what happened. And, like the two doctors are kind of facing off, and there's Michael between them, and what's going to happen. And then we cut to the our survivors and Tommy's Jeep, and they end up at the same bus station where little Jamie had landed the night before and phoned in the radio station. And so kind of like the same scene, kind of like a bookend, like sort of played out. It's kind of a callback to the first part of the movie. And instead of Jamie in the phone booth calling for help, it was Tommy Doyle, and Kara takes the children down to the restroom area, and he hears a scream, and he runs down there, and he finds blood all over the place, and Kara's stabbed, and the children are missing, and you hear sirens coming, and it looks like Tommy's going to get accused of all of this, and that was the end of it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's way better than what we got.
Way better.
So tell that to the producer, whose exact quote to me was, "You're not ending a movie in the toilet."
Oh my God.
I am a huge fan of the producer's cut, and like you said, with 65% of your stuff got in there, great. Like Michael's barely seen in the film; he's more like a shadow and a phantom, which I thought was great. Without throwing anybody under the bus or naming names, what do you think the number one issue with that, what caused so many problems on that film, like to cause it to have your idea go to this idea, like just what caused the downfall of 6?
It just wasn't one thing. It was a bunch of things. It was just like you said, it was like too many cooks in the kitchen. There was never any singular vision for what it should have been. I think if I made my biggest mistake was not asking Mr. Okada if I could direct it, because then I would have at least, if it was still a big mess, I could have blamed myself,
Right.
But I would have made the movie very differently. My whole approach to it would have been so much more Carpenter-esque, I guess. And, I just had an idea in my head how it would be shot, what it would look like, what the lighting would look like. I really had a sense of like visually the style of the piece. And, I think just as young as I was so glad to just be there. I just didn't have the courage, I guess, to step up and go, hey, I can direct it. It felt like that would have been, I don't think it even occurred to me at the time, but I think it just wasn't even in my consciousness. But I can't point to one person or one decision that caused it. It was all of these things. It was studio. It was producers on the set that were nickel and diming. It was not having enough money or resources to do things properly. It was, stupid casting decisions and not having Danielle play the part that she originated. It just goes on and on and on, guys. It's just, it was one of those movies that, I think its legacy is that, it stands out as the one that was the most interfered with.
Mm.
We did an editorial last year on the channel that basically, and like literally, we didn't even cover what was in the film. We just covered from where Halloween 5 ended, where filming began, and like that adventure on its own is a movie in itself with all the different directions it took. We know you're tight on time, and we know you got to go. We thank you for this. I have one question left. I feel like
of course,
straightforward one. Outside of the original Halloween, which is most people's favorite, and outside of the movie you worked on, what would be your favorite Halloween movie, and why?
I go with Halloween, the original Halloween 2, 1981. It was shot by Dean Cundy. It has the same feeling. You feel like it's the same night. It's a direct continuation of those events. it's the soundtrack, it's all of it. And I know John has sort of disavowed that movie, just from the beginning, never liked it. So I remember him reading a Fangoria interview where he said it was as scary as an episode of Quincy. I don't think you guys know what Quincy was, but Quincy was like a medical drama at the time. So, John never was, on the Halloween 2 train, but for me, it was the one that got me really into the genre. It was like a, 5-alarm blaze for me. Just, it was Halloween 2 all the way, and it still is. I still like the movie. I mean, I know people criticize it because Laurie Strode is like this passive character, and she's been through the whole thing. And like, well, where do you want her to go? But I think just in terms of the style and the mood and the way that it was told, and it felt like a really apt conclusion to the Michael Myers story. Little did we know he would survive that explosion. And his eyeballs being blown out. Who knew?
Well, dude, it's I appreciate your time. I'm so thankful you made this happen. Maybe tell everybody one more time where they can check out your 2 movies that are coming out.
Oh, thanks so much. And thanks to you guys for having me and patiently waiting for me. So I really appreciate it. I have written and directed these 2 new films coming out. The first one, August 16th, here in the United States. And it will have a theatrical premiere the night of August 16th. You can look for tickets in your area from fathomevents.com. And then that first film is Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. And the second film is Eileen Wuornos, American Boogie Woman, starring Peyton List, and has Tobin Bell from the Saw films, also a great cast. And that will have its similar premiere through Fathom on September 20th. And then, the streamers and DVD, Blu-ray release will happen, shortly after.
Awesome. Sounds great, dude. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity. And maybe after those movies come out, we can talk again.
That'd be great. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Take
care.
That was writer and director of Ted Bundy, American Boogeyman. And I'm sorry, what was the other one, Ray? You remember the name, I'm assuming.
Eileen Wuornos.
Sorry, one more time.
Eileen Wuornos.
All right. Thank you. I looked at that name. See, I'd never even heard of her. I'm not big into that stuff. So the idea that that Daniel ended up doing 2 in a row is pretty remarkable, especially during the pandemic when it's so hard to launch a production. We are going to stay live here, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if any of the other crew are going to join us. I'm going to send them a link and they can decide if they want to hop in here or not. Big thanks again to Daniel Farrands for taking the time. I mean, I can only imagine how crazy busy he is, and that was a lot of fun too.
It was. I'm still kind of like it's shocked that we were talking to him.
It's I always like when you can sort out fact from fiction.
Yeah,
because I mean, there was a lot of fiction that was out there many years ago about all sorts of Halloween movies, but now today, with the way the internet is, you get fake crap going out there all the time. People post fake stuff about us all the time and stuff that we apparently said and did not say. So there is that too. We are going to stay live for a little bit here, and I'm going to talk Halloween Kills a little bit with Ray. I need a
break for 5.
Yeah, no worries.
I'll be back.
Yeah, no, you can go. Yeah, guys, if you're in here, I sent you the link in the chat. And yeah, I'm gonna do something I don't usually do here. 1 second, see if this works. Testing. Oh, there we go. I sound a little different. Move this mic out of frame. The what? Oh, yeah, no, for sure. Will it fall? That's what everybody wants to know. Will it fall? Look who it is. Look at these fine folks in here. Fellas, you just had a... Every time I move this thing, you can hear it. You guys just had an opportunity to sit down and listen to Daniel like the rest of us did. I thought that was a very telling interview on both fronts, whether it was the Ted Bundy front and or the Halloween front, and I love that we were able to clarify a bunch. And I could be wrong. Maybe I looked over it in Taking Shape, but I don't ever recall hearing what Daniel's climax slash ending to his Halloween 6 was. I don't recall ever hearing it or reading it anywhere.
Me
And I'm not
neither.
saying this to kiss ass. You guys watch the channel enough. I don't do that. That's just not who I am. I'm not going to I'm going to be respectful, unlike some of the people who are in the chat. You know who I'm talking about. But I was completely blown away at the candidness that Daniel had. He could have avoided a lot of those questions. And yet, I firmly mean this. His climax and ending was so much better than what we got in either version of the film, which is pretty remarkable.
No, totally. It was a very enjoyable experience just being able to hear from the writer's perspective what could have been, but unfortunately, what was not. I was half tempted. I mean, that's the downside of not being able to let yourself back in because I was monitoring the chat. But I was half tempted to just chime in and ask what was his vision for afterwards. But that might be in Taking Shape. I've never read it cover to cover. Any idea on that, Sean?
I don't. I do know that, and I actually think Daniel's still in here. I don't know if he's still listening to us or not, but I see he's still in the studio room. I'm sure he's got better things to do than to listen to us jibber jabber here for the next little bit. But I feel like I read somewhere that they took some of his material and made them into Halloween comics. I believe some of the original Halloween comics that came out is based off of Daniel's material. I could be wrong on that, and if Daniel's still listening, he can feel free to throw an answer in the private chat section if he wants. But I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Ray might have some more insight.
Yeah, I'm familiar with those comics. I haven't gotten the opportunity to read them before, but they popped up for me before, like on the wiki, and when I had to fact check some, check characters' bios, so on and so forth. I'm sure they might be available electronically, but I highly doubt you're finding a print copy of them.
Yeah, no, if you want to get a print copy of them, you are going to be paying a lot of money on the secondary market. And I don't know about either of you, one of you guys. I certainly don't have $500 or $600 laying around to pay for a comic. So
The one thing I can't get over is Joe Chappelle called Carpenter a hack. I still can't get over that.
I don't think he's talking about Joe Chappelle when he says that. I think he's talking about the Weinsteins called Carpenter a hack, because I brought up the fact that the Weinsteins and Carpenter were in a rights battle to see who came out with Halloween franchise. Carpenter, I think, was backed at that time by New Line Cinema, and he had, I think at that time, I don't know if it was a joke, but it's well known that he put out there that he wanted to put Michael Myers in space. So, I don't think he meant Joe Chappelle. But, the one thing that's clear, whether you're taking it from someone else's channel or another biography or a book or Daniel's words himself, like, are you kidding me? Yeah, how do you think that was going to turn out for you? Anyway, oh, you're far nicer than me, Tommy. I've already hit my level of bullshit in the chat tonight. So,
Fair enough.
Yeah, no, the gloves are off.
Doesn't hurt me. Doesn't hurt my feelings.
I also wanted to be respectful, right? You're talking to a professional writer and director of a franchise that we cover heavily here. And I know most of the time people come on here and we're having a fun show and I'll be sitting there vaping. But I wasn't going to do that while talking to Daniel. That would be really disrespectful. And oh, yeah, see, Daniel's still listening. Apparently he doesn't have something better to do tonight. He says, correct, Bob Weinstein called John Carpenter a hack. Oh, that's just, could you imagine sitting at like a round table of people creative heads, and the same person that tells you that we got to have heads exploding and guts everywhere, and we got to see this body part fly this way and that body part fly that way, is the same person that's telling you that John Carpenter, Halloween, The Thing, Escape from New York, Christine, can I go on? Yet that guy's a hack. Are you kidding me? Like, oh my God.
I wonder if he'd had the balls to say it in the same room. Because I got a feeling JC would jump across the table and gone a few rounds in Bob Weinstein's face.
I'm pretty sure John Carpenter had nothing to do with Halloween 6 other than when they went for the rights battle. Yeah. He had his own thing that he wanted to do and didn't end up doing it. So we're going to talk some Halloween here, and we'll
they approached him to direct, and he wanted to put Michael in space.
Yeah, I said that when you were outside.
Yeah.
And I know some people, sort of toss that aside and be like, "Oh, well, he was joking, clearly," but like, was he? He also almost came back. If you're reading, you read it. I got you a copy. Taking Shape 2. He also almost came back for Michael versus Pinhead.
Yep. Which
is remarkable that they were the two projects he wanted to come back for. But he's definitely not a hack. He's a legend. And yeah, I don't know. It's too bad. And when we just spoke to Daniel there, it was very clear that he had a vision. And, we live in a day, an age today where people remake everything. I'm not saying you're ever going to see a remake of H6. I'm not even sure Daniel would ever want to tackle that. But it would have been really nice to see his vision come onto screen without meddling. I mean, studios meddling, though, is a common thing. Tommy, you and I come from a Star Wars background where George Lucas was adamant for years that, they cut, I think it was 10 minutes out of American Graffiti, and he was just pissed with the studio system from that point on. And then he got fined for having the credits at the end of The Empire Strikes Back. They let him off with A New Hope, Star Wars, when it came out, but they didn't let him off with Empire, and they fined him a bunch of money, and he ended up paying it out and leaving the Directors Guild and all that. So there's so much drama and stuff that happens behind the scenes there that it's not like it was just a Halloween 6 thing. This seems to be a Hollywood thing, and obviously not on all productions, but that's got to be frustrating to have to work in those confines. Before we jump into some of Ray's thoughts, because we haven't heard about them, I'm assuming you've seen the Halloween Kills trailer and some of the other stuff that's come out. I know we had a conversation about Halloween Ends. We're going to take this moment to do some rumor killing. So I thought about not talking about this on air, and then I thought about, well, why not? No worries, Kieran. All good, dude. I thought, why not? Let's come on air and talk about this. So ourselves and McRae and Lee McCoy and other channels have had a troll issue for a while. And it's the same group of people from that same, BS Discord server. Now, Ray, we've talked briefly about this, but let's just.
I know of anything. Whatever I know is what you told me.
Okay, so apparently, on the set of Haddonfield the Vanished, there's rumors that we didn't even go to film, by the way. But even though there's video of us there. Apparently your brother,
which I don't have,
and I got into a heated fight in front of the whole cast and crew, which led to a falling out between you and I, and that your brother and I literally exchanged blows.
You've met my brother. I haven't. So I'm okay.
So you don't have a brother?
No, I don't have a brother. And so what was that we didn't even go?
Well, yeah, there was one that you guys never even began filming.
Oh, so we didn't film, but we got into a fight somewhere where we didn't go to.
Right, makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Are we following this?
Oh.
But no, there's no brother. There was no fight.
I don't have a brother, and there was no fight. It was actually a very enjoyable experience.
It was exhausting, and we didn't get nearly as much done as we would have liked. And things that are beyond our control happened, where we haven't been able to return to filming to the point where we will release Haddonfield to Vanish next year, next October, around the time Halloween Ends comes out, if it doesn't get backed up. We're doing the Haddonfield Slayer, which is a found footage film shot specifically just on my iPhone 12 Pro Max. And it's going to be about 10-12 minutes long. And we're getting ready to film some of that in late August, early September. But this is the first time that we've had Ray on. So I figured that it was time to, dispel some of those.
I haven't been in your house for a year.
Right?
Except that one day my dad came by.
Don't worry, though. We hate each other, apparently. It's just terrible. Sean screwed Ray. That's right. Sean screwed Ray, just like Brett screwed, or Vince screwed Brett. Brett screwed Brett.
No, he's telling me all this stuff about what someone's saying, and I'm just like, whoa, okay. I have no clue what was going on. Like, I'm like so declined on, like, declined isn't the right word. Just I'm not on the net that much, and like, it was all news to me.
I don't blame you. I mean, half the stuff that happens on the internet is toxic as shit, and oh man, you know what you haven't seen yet? I haven't showed you any of Terrence. Now I can't show you any of Terrence while we're live on air here, because it would end up getting hit. But when we get off air, I'll show you some Terrence. When we have Ray and Tommy and Matt all on here at once, let's talk a little bit about Halloween Kills. The channel's heard from the three of us. They've not heard from you. You are someone who has read the script, so it's not like anything in the trailer was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. If it did anything, it confirmed what was in the script. What did you think of the trailer?
Why didn't you just show the whole movie?
Sorry, I got to do this.
That's my opinion. Did you really need to show every single person Michael comes across in that trailer?
No, you didn't. And the most frustrating thing is there's some Halloween groups and Halloween channels who are like, oh, the soundtrack leak, the titles are so spoilery. Nowhere in the titles on this soundtrack does it do what Star Wars The Phantom Menace did. It's a Qui-Gon's funeral or whatever was like one of the tracks at the end of The Phantom Menace. There's nothing like that in the track listings. And I see some YouTubers who and content creators who are just like, oh, the soundtrack's way more spoilery than the trailer. And I just thought to myself, are you on fucking acid? Like, I know there's a lot the trailer doesn't show in terms of kills. Like, there's way more kills than that in the movie.
Yeah.
You've read the script. Like, it's not even close. I don't think you see 25% of the kills in the trailer. That's how many kills are in this movie. But I mean, I'm not saying anything that John Carpenter and David Gordon Green and Jason Blum haven't already said. However, I'm with you. Like, not only does it show too much in the trailer, it shows very important parts in the trailer that, while the audience might not pick it up right now, when they're watching the movie as a whole, they're going to realize before something happens that, oh, I know what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Because, and like, to me, it's just like, anybody that's telling you that the trailer doesn't show too much is either just not getting it. It's subjective, of course, either not getting it or covering their own ass. But yeah, I thought it showed too much too.
It did. I thought that whole scene with the firefighter should not have been shown. That's my opinion. It literally shows how he got out of there. Now, it's missing one part of how he got out of there.
Yes.
And how he only got burned on one.
Yeah, it is. Well, they kind of show you that a little later on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be able to piece it together.
Yes.
So,
and it's just how many. It almost looked like Halloween has come back as an action film. I mean, that's trailer-ish. It looked like a horror action almost, the way some of it went. But he's in every scene of that thing except for like at a different character. And it's just like we complained that the 2018 trailer showed too much. Now a lot of the stuff that was in the trailer didn't make the final cut, but it looked like from that trailer that we saw and going by what we read, it looks like that you might as well have just, instead of just watching the trailer, here's the movie.
Toronto Freddy says in the chat, and the death of a major key. I don't know if I'd call it a major key character, but I'd call it a legacy character. They literally show you how that character dies, and they'll be like, well, you don't actually see them die. It's like, you fucking see them. How'd that turn out for you, Don? Not very well, right? Or is that Dan? I can't read. You literally see that character in their specific clothes, and then you see that character later on with a mask on, dead in those specific clothes, and it's not like it. This isn't a spoiler, okay? I'm not telling you this person's fate, but it's not like they did it with Cameron or something, right? Like, a lot of people don't like Hammer from H18. We're talking about a character that's considered a legacy character in Halloween, and we just went and spoiled their death in a 2-minute trailer.
And a lot of it showed the specific kill exactly. The light tube. Like, did you really need to go into that much detail? No. Or the saw with the firefighter.
Which I remember, like, the script literally depicts that scene so well. Like, I remember reading it and being like to you, well, that's going to look badass on screen. I wonder if they'll get as creative with that as they depicted in the script. And they do. And it's like, oh, why are we watching this in the trailer again?
Yeah, I think maybe we should have taken our own advice and not watched the trailer. But, I mean, then there's people out there who are listening and watching that when they see the movie, they'll be like, now I get why they said that showed too much.
Absolutely. Matt, Tommy, any thoughts on the trailer? It's been a little bit since we've talked about that.
Yeah, no, totally. It's what we expected. The trailer itself was a totally disappointing just drop for the fandom, if you ask me, because as we all know, prior to us actually getting our hands on the official release, it leaked in this grainy piece of garbage that was floating all around Facebook groups, in some cases being officially put out by the staff of said groups. And what else is new? Folks have been I'm conflicted on this, honestly, because yes, there are people who have, endeavored very much so to not read the script, to avoid the spoilers, to avoid even the fucking trailer. And eventually it just gets to be so much. Now, I'm not one of those people. I was totally on board from when I was, getting into taking on a bigger role on these videos, covering it and so on and so forth, that I read the script and dived right in. But yeah, I really empathize with folks like that. Just feeling, well, this trailer just basically gave away such a significant portion of the fucking movie. Why even go, right? Why even go? Now, I think people are still going to go no matter what, because from every guess we can make, it's going to be a good film. Could they still screw it up like my favorite, line at the end of Fanboys, the Star Wars fan parody film? Hey guys, what if it sucks? Yeah, they totally could mess it up, but I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think we are excited to see it. I think it's going to be an overall great film. I think for some folks, it's going to be their favorite film in the franchise. But yeah, marketing has just been disappointing. But what can you do, right?
What are you pointing at? I don't get it.
Pointing you.
I'm that way. Or that
I'm
way.
trying to figure out how it is on my camera. Oh, yeah.
Backwards. It's probably backwards.
Okay, there we go.
Elise, what was that person's name, or was the comment removed? Oh no, there it is. Elise Bratsberg, if that is your real name. What are your guys' thoughts on the Scream Factory Halloween 4Ks that are coming?
They're absolutely awful.
Yes, dog shit.
They're awful releases of awful movies.
That's not very
Yeah, what he
nice.
said.
I think that that they look amazing, and everybody is eagerly awaiting, possibly tomorrow, maybe early next week, what the special features are as it pertains to Halloween 4 and Halloween 5. Everybody wants, the big unreleased stuff from Halloween 5, and it sounds like they might get it, but
There is stuff from 4.
no, there's stuff from 4 too, for sure. Now, I don't know how true this is. Was the police station stuff filmed in 4?
I think it was.
So
It was.
It was a whole different beginning too.
yes. I think there's a different beginning to 5, right?
Yeah, there's 2 different ones to 5. One got filmed, which I've already seen, but there's another one that where Michael was supposed to fall off like a 100-foot cliff with and they couldn't get it done. But it's like, how many times can you release the same film and not add more stuff that people haven't already seen? Like, if you're a collector that wants the special cases and the booklets, like, okay, but release the same movie again. It's like the Friday the 13th stuff.
That's accurate, by the way. Very accurate. On a Bo Burnham kick. Yes, I see it's starting to blow up in the chat. Thanks, Jade. It is my birthday tomorrow. I turned 24 years young, clearly.
What
Time? How many times have you turned 24 years young?
10.
I think it'd be 9 if I'm doing my math right. 33 tomorrow. So
wow, you're old.
Unfortunately. So
Ray told me you were turning 40.
I don't even think Ray's 40. No, Ray's not 40. Almost getting there though. All right, so let's talk about the thing that surprised everybody, including us, because everybody had it wrong. Everybody. You can say it wasn't surprising. It was. Get over yourself. Halloween Ends takes place 4 years. We think it's 4 years. It might be 3 after Halloween Kills. The original intent was to do them all on the same night / the next morning. They admitted that in Total Film Magazine. What's your take, Ray, on the fact that what was originally a planned trilogy all on one night / the next morning is now going to take a 4-year time jump? I would think that would mean the film's going to change significantly and that we're probably going to get a brand new mask and get it. What are your thoughts on
my thoughts were that I didn't think a trilogy on the same night could work because timing. Like, it's going to be like November 1st there. Unless they're shooting like from a basis of its real time. But you'd have to assume that hours are going by on Halloween night. So my guess is that Kills is taking place maybe could be 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, where would you fit Ends in on that timeline? Like, I don't think we've ever had a November 1st Halloween film. But that also begs to... Yeah, but then the movie ended, right? They took Laurie away, and they might switch something up with Kills. An ending that... Because it leaves more questions now than, like, okay, what? Obviously, Michael isn't dying in this new film coming out. That's not
spoiler. Oh my god!
Oh shit!
Don't go see the movie.
So where is? I just hope they don't go the route he went into hiding for 4 years, and he's been out in the woods or something like.
Rob Zombies.
You don't want Rob Zombies.
Halloween. You want that again?
Eating squirrels.
They better have a good explanation as why this 4-year time gap.
I threw out the idea that maybe he moves on to other towns and only strikes on Halloween, and they can't pinpoint what the next town's going to be.
Yeah.
I don't believe that they did reshoots after the change. So any change that happens in the movie would have to be them choosing to cut off the very end of kills, which I've said to this day, I find it underwhelming that you go through such an amazing script and then you choose to end it on the exact note they ended on. I was always just like, really? That seems a little anticlimactic. By the way, we were just talking about the trailer, not to revert back to that, but think about this. The flashback stuff has been on the internet since, well over a year and a half ago. Everybody knows the flashbacks happening, like literally everybody. You could have shown some of that and avoided showing some of the kills, since everybody's already seen raw footage of the flashback being filmed. It's literally on YouTube.
Except for one part.
Correct.
I'm not going to say who it is
Correct.
or what, but if they would have shown that in the trailer, I would have, and I shouldn't get mad over such.
But why not show bits of that?
Yeah.
Like,
they could have showed little Lonnie. Like, clearly that's out because everybody knows little Lonnie is, in the
Cameron's daddy.
Yeah, and they've got the kid wearing the same little red jacket and the blue jeans that he was in the first one. I know it's a different actor, but
for sure
they could have shown something about that. Yeah.
Not to be all negative Nancy on everybody. We're just, being honest with their thoughts about things that are going on right now. How does everybody feel at this point? Like, what's your excitement level for Halloween Kills? Has it gone up a bit? Has it gone down a bit? Where are you with that, Ray?
Reading the script made me want to see it more. The wait has been unfortunate, but I'm still very, very much looking forward to seeing it. I've had a priority change in life, and I don't need to get on it. Like, Halloween, I will always love. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. I hope we can all go. But it's not like I was more excited about 18 than I am about this one.
It's funny you mentioned that, the funny we can all go bit, because someone got a hold of me today on Twitter and basically said that there was a chance the movie could get delayed again. Not to start everybody panicking.
Now, why would you say that? Because now you know they're going to panic.
You don't want to know the things I've been reading. But anyway.
Now they're going to tweet about it. They're going to talk about it to each
Fandom
other.
Empire said it's going to be delayed. No, we didn't.
We're reporting on it now.
I do want to make it clear, though, that to our knowledge, the movie will not be delayed. And that regardless if theaters close back down or not, I don't see them closing down. But if they did, you've already held on to the movie long enough.
Just release it.
The script's out there. The soundtrack's out there. You had a very spoilery trailer out there. You're telling me you're going to hold on to the movie for another fucking year?
And then that would do so much damage to ends.
No, you'll have some guy who has some money go put together some little cartoon animation clips and here's Halloween Kills, or you'll have some guy with a fan film that goes out there and basically does Halloween Kills. There's no way this is getting delayed unless Universal's, putting their foot down, being like, yeah, no, we're not going to put it out on PVOD. And I know there's the drama behind what's going on with Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson, and now the 101 Dalmatian spinoff with, as Terrence would say, Spider-Man lady. And I do know, it does sort of affect Halloween. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it doesn't, because Jamie Lee Curtis gets paid on the back end. So when everyone's like, well, Jamie Lee Curtis and David Gordon Green want people to see it on a big screen. They don't give a shit if you watch it on a 19-inch black and white TV. What they give a shit about is the fact so many of them get paid on points at the end and how much money that comes in. And there's a lot less money that comes in if they go just straight to streaming, because everybody's going to bootleg it in high quality than a full theatrical release. They don't care about your experience. They care about the almighty dollar at the end of the day. And that's not conspiracy theories. That's just how the industry works for the most part, which is unfortunate. But it is what it is. I don't see this movie getting delayed. I would think if you delay this movie again, the harm you do to it, I don't think you can make that up.
Nope.
So you're saying that you feel that kicking this movie back, dare I say, I guess it would have to be another whole year, is going to essentially harm the film more than just releasing it on video on demand somehow.
Look, if there's a streaming service out there and they're talking to them, but if there's a streaming service out there that's going to write them a big fat check for 150 million or 200 million dollars, I don't think they'll get that much, but and if theaters were to close down again, you can kiss your theater experience goodbye. The problem is, will Universal then turn and be like, yeah, the movie didn't release in theaters, Jamie Lee Curtis, so you don't get your points on the back end. You get the minimum, and then you'll have Jamie Lee Curtis suing Universal Studios the way that Scarlett Johansson is suing Disney.
It would really suck too because she's struggling financially.
Man, yeah, she's really hurting. And that's not to knock Jamie Lee by any means. It's just there's so many people in the industry that get paid on back end. You know, that's just what they choose. So, Toronto Freddy says it'd be a dope idea if the Strode women capture Michael at the end of Kills and they keep him locked up and torture him slowly because of all the pain and anguish he has caused Haddonfield. Thoughts on that take?
How do you torture that guy though?
I don't think you can torture him. I think like you could literally cut him.
Torture him sexually.
Well, that's a different kind of movie. That sounds like Tommy's OnlyFans. So,
I mean, they're not brother sister anymore. It's not a family affair anymore. So
it's okay when it's in a three-way.
Oh my god. So,
all right.
The brother sister angle, it came up in the interview with Daniel.
They could have kept it.
And the more I think about it, the more I feel like they just removed it for the sake of removing it.
Mm-hmm.
KJ says Ray needs to be a regular on this show. Well, we're certainly gonna try to have him on more. There's the cat's out of the bag now, but we have a private screening for Halloween Kills booked for October the 14th. So those of us up here in Canada will get to enjoy that. Theater restrictions will depend on how many people we can invite. But right now, I think we're allowed 20. I think it's 20. So at least 20 people's covered in the initial. It was like $200+ or whatever. And it's not like, Venom Empire gets to see the movie on October 14th, but the rest of us get to see it on October 15th. Go to your local theater on October the 14th. They'll be showing the movie after 6 p.m. The difference is I think we're going to get to see Halloween 18 before we see Halloween Kills in our viewing. So for those that haven't seen it, Halloween 18 on the big screen, they'll get a chance to see that. And then that'll be followed by Halloween Kills. And we're definitely looking forward to that. Anyways, though, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it for tonight's show. I might pop back on after midnight. We'll see what happens. And that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
Daniel Farrands is not the only Halloween alum that we've been talking to about getting on the channel. I just can't say anything else about anyone else.
You're gonna get Jamie Lee Curtis?
Oh, totally. She's hurting for money so bad that we've offered her 25% of the super chats.
You have to send in all kinds of chats because she gets paid on the back end, right? So.
Yeah.
You're getting Tina from Halloween 5?
Oh, go to hell.
She would be actually pretty cool to talk to. Anybody.
Explain that though. Like they had Rachel. Why did they not just continue with Ellie Cornell?
I don't know.
Because they're idiots.
And the thing about Danielle Harris not being in 6, if Danielle Harris was Jamie in 6, and this isn't a knock on JC Brandy, they would have had to have come up with a better Jamie Lloyd for her to play than the one that came out in 6.
I always thought it was the financial end of it.
Or dead. She wanted $5,000. She wanted $5,000 and they didn't want to pay her.
Can you imagine not paying a performer today for $5,000? if that is the true story behind it. I couldn't imagine it. So get Tony Moran. No. He'd probably leave the stream pretty quickly.
He start cussing us out.
I don't care how big you are. You don't treat people the way that that individual has treated people.
He was Michael for 2 seconds.
Right. But he classifies himself as the original Shape.
Well, he's the only Shape that's been unmasked that we could fully see his face. Give him that.
This is true. Although, I mean, James G. Courtney was basically there in 2018.
Okay, yeah.
So,
you got a good point there.
Backup plan. We can always get Buster.
Thanks, Dean. That means a lot, dude. It's appreciated. Let Terrence interview Tony Moran. Yeah, as soon as we get off here, I'm going to show Ray Terrence, and it's gonna be funny. Tommy, where can everybody find you at, man?
Everybody can catch me hanging around our groups and pages. Check out the Phantom Empire Den, where we do a lot of our conversing. You can find me on other socials, Twitter and Instagram at TommyB1650.
Maddie, how about you, sir?
Yeah, I'm in the same spots where Tommy is. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at my new name I've developed is Matty Phillip West. So, yeah.
Sorry, one more time?
Matty Phillip West.
Why?
Because that's my part of my whole name.
Oh, okay. Are you interviewing Bucky? That guy right there, for months before I ever seen a Halloween movie, would go on building Bucky up so much. And then when I Rafe and really? Oh, I blocked the wrong guy. Somebody unblock Sean C, please.
What did he do? Were you trying to block
the guy that's trying to illegally distribute the soundtrack right now? So
Can I give you my email? No.
The same troll who says that your brother and I, got into it.
Oh, he's a clown.
Your brother?
No, whoever that guy is.
Yeah, he is. Anyway, dude, thanks for coming out and doing this, man.
Thank you for inviting me. And thanks for everybody for listening to my my ranting.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. We'll have another Halloween alum on. I don't know if it'll be before Kills, but we are talking with a few, and it'll definitely happen. But anyways, you can check us out on Patreon. That's right. I'm going to plug the program that you guys pay to keep up. Patreon.com/Fandom Empire. Daniel sends in. I'm going to read this on air, Daniel. Hopefully it's okay. Great show, guys. Thanks for everything. Stay well. Stay safe. Happy Halloween. It's appreciated, man. Appreciate the opportunity. It really was a fun one. And I didn't think we were going to get to dive into his script and find out what things were going to be tonight. Yeah. And he was more than kind with that. So that's really badass. Anyways, again, patreon.com/Fandom Empire. We have a merch store now. TeePublic, Twitter and Instagram's at Phantom Empire now. Facebook's the Phantom Empire Den. And might see you later tonight. And if not, we will see you on Monday. Actually, Monday we have a joint broadcast with the RIPC guys talking Game of Thrones, and then Tuesday we'll be back at it again with Phantom Empire Live. But until then, don't forget, the Boogeyman is coming.